This video is sponsored by Audiomika, manufacturers of the interconnects and speaker cables used by a British audiophile. For more information about these and their other products, please click the link in the description. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that the Eversolo DMP-A6 was the hottest product of 2023, certainly the hottest digital product. It's hard to argue with the value for money that it represents. Although not perfect, aspects of the A6 sound quality, but especially its build, features and user interface, set it apart from the competition. That's why it was my best source component of 2023, below £1,000. Quite frankly, adding a couple of features that were missing from the DMP-A6 and a better quality DAC isn't going to cut the mustard for the DMP-A8. It's over £1,000 more expensive. That means you can buy the Eversolo DMP-A6 and add an external DAC like the Denafrips Ares 12-1 for about the same price. My reference DAC for under £2,000 is the excellent Gustard R26. Okay, it may only have a basic streamer, but the R26 is £240 cheaper, so the Eversolo DMP-A6 needs to compete sonically. Thanks to the success of the DMP-A6, the hype train is full steam ahead with the DMP-A8. I'm here to tell you, if you're better off with the A6, and with the money saved, put that towards an external DAC. And also, if the A8 can compete with the big boys, at around £2,000. The Eversolo DMP-A8 retails for £1,890 in the UK. It's not far off being a full rack width unit at 388mm. You can see that it's not only considerably wider, but also considerably deeper than the £759 DMP-A6. The industrial design is also the same as its junior sibling, but where the chunky aluminium casework and 6-inch LCD display are extraordinary for the asking price of the A6, they're merely reassuring in this market segment. The A8 truly is a comprehensive digital front-end solution. All the digital outputs you could wish for are there, including I2S, as are the digital inputs, including HDMI ARC for integration with the TV. Both are omitted from the A6. I'll discuss the internal architecture in the next section, but it's suffice to say that the DMP-A8 has a proper analog preamp. It has one single-ended RCA and one balanced XLR input, and you get the same with analog outputs. Just like the DMP-A6, the A8 can be turned into a cost-effective music server by opening up a compartment on the underside. It'll take up to a 4TB M2 NVMe compatible solid-state drive. The user interface is fast, intuitive and comprehensive, with improvements and new features being added all the time. It's already comparable to class leaders from the likes of BlueOS and Hi-Fi Rose. All the streaming services you would expect are there and more, including the ability to be used as a Roon endpoint. Although I still couldn't find a way to create playlists across platforms, but I may be missing something. That feature, if not already available, is promised to be coming in a future firmware update. The Eversolo DMP-A8 has two completely independent power supplies feeding the digital and analog sections. An ultra-low noise switch mode power supply serves the digital section and a linear power supply the analog section. The central portion is the interface for various digital inputs and outputs. The streaming module is actually obscured by a heatsink mounted on top, adjacent to the clocking circuitry comprising two Accu-Silicon femtocrystal oscillators. To its left is a digital to analog conversion scheme employing AKM's flagship Velvet sound architecture. It attempts to reduce impedance and favourably redistribute noise in the pursuit of better sound quality. The conversion is separated out into two different ICs. The AK4191EQ is a multi-bit delta sigma modulator with built-in digital filters deploying 256 times oversampling. The digital to analog conversion itself is carried out by the AK4499EX chip. It's AKM's top-of-the-range converter, utilizing a switching resistor method. The bottom left corner has rectification and filtering for the analog power supply. Above that is a fully balanced analog preamplifier using resistor ladders for volume attenuation. The top left section houses the analog output stage. There's a lot going on in this device, and the architecture is quite different to the DMP-A6. Firstly, if you're auditioning the Eversolo DMP-A6, don't make the mistake that I did. I spent a day listening to it with its default digital filter. In fact, Jez Kerr from Kerr Acoustics was around dropping off his K320 speakers, and I was making comparisons with my Auralic Ares G1 Denafrips Venus 2 digital front end. I think we both agreed that the Eversolo sounded very clean, but a bit artificial. After he left, I decided to explore filter options and noted the device had left the factory set to the short delay sharp roll-off filter. That setting left digital footprints all over the sonic landscape. The slow roll-off filter sounded a lot more natural. Someone's bound to ask me, doesn't that digital filter setting roll off the treble a little bit? Well, yeah, but the Eversolo house sound seems to head towards the bright side, although the A8 isn't anywhere near as aggressive as the A6 and has a lot better refinement. In terms of sound quality, the A8 is levels above the A6, and forget the extra features that it has for a second. In terms of pure sound quality, it justifies the extra outlay alone. But this isn't where you come for sensationalized reviews, so just how good is it? Is it as good as the DMP-A6 combined with an external DAC like the Denafrips Ares 12-1? Bear in mind that that combination is about the same price as the DMP-A8. The A6 Ares 12-1 can't match the A8 when it comes to resolution. It is an exquisitely detailed sound, but the Denafrips DAC does what R2R ladder DACs do best: present a layered soundstage and a more natural tone when it comes to vocals and acoustic instruments. You are giving up quite a bit of information from recordings for those benefits though, and I have to say this, the A8 isn't anywhere near as anemic sounding as almost all the chip-based DACs that I've encountered. So let's up the game a bit. The Gustard R26 costs only a little less than the Eversolo DMP-A8. The R26 does have a basic streamer that supports third-party apps, but I couldn't be bothered with that, so I use the DMP-A6 as a transport. The Gustard R26 is the most resolving DAC I've heard below £2,000. Well, it was the most resolving. The Eversolo DMP-A8 is just a little bit more detailed. Differences in information retrieval are relatively minor, and the A8 is acoustically lighter on its feet. Differences in soundstage are much more noticeable. The A8 is wider and the R26 considerably deeper. That inability to create a 3D immersive soundstage is perhaps the biggest fly in the ointment of the Eversolo DMP-A8. That's all true, but using the fixed volume settings. If you want to engage the fully balanced resistor ladder analog volume control of the DMP-A8 and use it as a preamp, the picture changes. The Gustard R26 has a digital volume control that significantly impacts on sound quality. It also has an analog volume control which performs better but has limited gain, so won't go loud enough in many applications. There are no such issues with the A8's volume control. It's far more sophisticated and you can use it without detriment to sound quality, and did I mention you can connect analog sources to this unit as well. So what about the Auralic Altair G1.1 that won my best source component of 2023 from £1,000 to £3,000? It has a very good streamer, but not as sophisticated as the A8, no touchscreen, no analog inputs, and no HDMI eARC, which is really useful when connecting to a telly. Like the Gustard R26, the Auralic Altair G1.1 sonically remains overall the more accomplished unit, but only just. I can absolutely see people preferring the Eversolo DMP-A8 for its greater connectivity. I haven't got much to say about partnering equipment. I think the Eversolo DMP-A8 will work well in a vast array of systems. Sonically, it's fairly balanced sounding, and functionally, flexibility is its bag. Just make sure you choose the digital filter setting that suits you best. I've already spoken about the one which I prefer, the soft roll-off one. I'm not going to go through all the settings, so I'd be here all day. The main screen is very similar to the A6. Music is where you can add libraries, manage them and search under different criteria. Streaming affords you access to the gamut of streaming services and protocols. You can see where files are stored in various locations, including a music library if added. Sources allows selection between the numerous inputs and outputs, and there are plenty of things you can customize in the settings menu. The DMP-A8 has a DSP function that isn't currently available on the DMP-A6. Amongst other things, it incorporates a multi-band parametric EQ where you can select the frequencies you desire, lift them or reduce them by up to 15 decibels. The Q setting allows you to increase or decrease the severity of the slope. DSP can be useful especially to deal with bass problems caused by compromised speaker setup or to ameliorate poor room acoustics. Just be aware that it's not a free lunch. DSP can cause phase linearity problems that can affect soundstage imaging and overall fidelity, especially if you're pulling frequencies up and down by large amounts in the mids and highs. The build, the user interface and the display of the Eversolo DMP-A8 are all available on the A6 for around 40% of the price, but the A8 has all the digital connections you could desire and has stunning abilities to pull information from recordings. Digital electronics is one area of hi-fi where the goalposts seem to shift quickly, says the guy who uses 25-year-old speakers and amplifiers as a reference. The Eversolo DMP-A8 demonstrates how far digital products have come. It excels in the areas of sound quality where traditional chip-based DACs seem to do well, precision and control, whilst narrowing the gap to the best R2R ladder DACs when it comes to producing a natural tone. Eversolo have shown their intent here to be major players in this space. For just under £1,900 you get an excellent streamer, a great DAC and a fully balanced analog preamplifier. The Eversolo DMP-A8 deserves to have its praises sung just as loudly as the DMP-A6, and that's why it gets a very, very highly recommended from this channel. My question of the day is simply, what digital products would you like to see me review this year? Please let me know about that in the comment section. All that remains for me to say is if you like what I'm doing with this channel, you want to see it grow, and assuming you haven't done so already, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Check me out on Patreon. There's a couple of consultancy tiers you can access there if you think I can help you on your audiophile journey. Also check out the ABA Club on Patreon, which has some really cool ways to interact with me and fellow Patreons. But for today, for now, the British Audiophile, signing off.